So we're going to review the test paper we did in our last class of review test, where we look at the questions that were asked of you. The question comes: Celebrate Jamaica 50 campaign launched by the government of Jamaica in 2012 from the expert you have given above. What are three aspects of data in it? What you need to do is look at the article and to see what is data. Year 2012 has no special meaning. Celebrate 50 birthday. 50 birthday of who? Independent nation. Which independent nation? The celebration began in January 2012, but when in January 2012? Those are some items of data in the excerpt, which is 2 marks for that question. You have to list information that can be ascertained from the article. The article speaks about the celebration of Jamaica's 50th independence, where it says the special one for Jamaica and all Jamaicans. So it will know who are the persons who are celebrating independence, and that this was in the year 2012. So that is information which was very clear. It says that Jamaica, in the second sentence, celebrate our 50th birthday as an independent nation. The many activities have been used to mark this occasion. That's a kind of information. The name of the Archbishop of York who visited Jamaica, Archbishop of York, the Most Reverend and Right Honorable Dr. John Setamu. That would be a kind of information, definitely. The two, that he had two ecumenical services to celebrate Jamaica 50. That's information. Many worshippers came to the cathedral in Spanish Town, the St. James Cathedral, and in Spanish Town, Mobay also, and Webster Memorial Park in Kingston. The island having headliners for the Jamaica 50 performances of the Jazz and Blues Festival with prominent Jamaican artists and special guest performer Celine Dion. That's the kind of information that we're giving out in terms of headliners. We also have where Jamaica House is, which is the one in London we're talking about. That's a kind of information. What are two aspects of knowledge that can be ascertained from the article above? We could speak about Jamaicans would be happy to celebrate their 50th year of independence. That is a type of information, a knowledge that we get from the article that we read. Many different activities that are being planned to showcase Jamaica's pride and joy as a people would be some kind of information, knowledge that we take back. That the article spoke a lot about information that was being given out of what was being done to celebrate Jamaica 50. But more so, from all of that, we have the knowledge that we get that this seems as if it was going to be a lot of excitement, that people are going to be very enthused. People are being asked to come out and to celebrate Jamaica 50 celebrations throughout the year. It wasn't just a one night event, but a year long event. And those are items of information. As relates to question 2, explain what is meant by information processing in the context of information technology. We speak about information processing as the technique or the steps used to convert data into information. Always have to remember that information processing is how do we change the data into information, and as such the data becomes some kind of usable format, kind of information that's becoming much more directly applicable, that you know can make more meaningful gesture from your information that you get. The components of information processing, you must always remember that there are 4 components of information processing. There's input, processing, output, and there is storage. Alright? I believe yesterday was an error in it. It had processing twice listed in objective 5 module 1 for unit 1. You didn't have to go into details about the different steps or what are the different components. You didn't have to define them. You only asked to say what they are at this point in the question. You are to state with a definition the two types of information processing. Um, the two types of information processing, as you know, is automated information processing and manual information processing. And you have to remember that you have two sentences to express yourself. With manual information processing, the data is converted into information, and that this this information that you get, the whole steps you go through to convert the data into information does not include any form of technology. No form of electrical current is being used. There is no form of technology being used. While automated information processing would speak morely about how do we convert data into information, and this is being done with assistance of technology. If you want to use an example to kind of express yourself, you could probably say that counting the chairs in the classroom would be a form of manual information processing. Because if you have to tally what are the metal chairs, what are the sponge chairs, what are the stools in there, how many desks are inside there, how many reclining chairs you have or swinging chairs you have, then all of this could be done by the use of technology. As it relates to automated information processing, if the chairs had barcodes on them or the books in the book room had barcodes on them, and you had to scan the barcode, you had to use that scanning of the barcode as a form of data processing. Then you could tabulate how many math book, how many English book were lent out or given out or is present. Then that's automated information processing. For each of them, tables should be used to summarize the three benefits of information processing being automated. And now the question on the advantages and disadvantages or the limitations and benefits of each information processing method. This is on objective 5 of your syllabus, and these would have come directly from your handout. That man information processing, the system is very easy to set up. There's not much need for any setting up really. If you're going to do a book rental display program, then once you get the books them into the book room, it's a matter of just stamping them, writing a code in them, and getting them ready for dissemination. The system is very easy to operate, little or no cost or electrical power. So even in the book room, if for example there's no light there, there's no electrical current, then the system can still function. Um, there is very easy way to operate it. I mean, you pull a card out of the file, and when you pull the card out of the file, then you just write on the card and write the book number in the card, and that's the end of that. So there is really very easy to set up and operate. The system can be operated in the event of electrical failure. So if there's no electrical power in the room, then these systems can still work. I mean, the book rental person can still issue books from the book room without the need for technology being used. The system requires very low cost to manage because not much technology has to be spent buying equipment and stuff to put inside of the room to run it. Easy maintenance or low maintenance costs. I mean, the cost to go and buy the cards them or to get the cards them photocopied, that's going to be very little cost. I mean, to get the stamps them to stamp the card, and those are just very small costs. But one the problems we have with manual information processing is that the system is difficult to update or to access information readily. So if you want to find out how many math book for grade 11s were loaned out, you have to go through all the cards and count up all the people in grade 11 who collected math book. Or if you want to change a particular book code um, from, let's say, MFC5, Maths for the Caribbean Book 5, to Maths for the Caribbean Book 5A, which is a new version that came out. They call it 5A instead of just 5. You got to go through all the cards again and to change the codes on every card that you're going to hand out a book for now. So that's very difficult. Um, the system is prone to contain errors, as persons might forget to update the records. In a manual information system, you are going to make errors in it. People forget to sign the cards and when they come, or to sign for all the books in the got. You know, it's prone to error. People don't put the files them in their place. People maybe distracted when they're writing on data and therefore make errors in transferring the book numbers, for example, in the library, in the book room system, onto the cards. Data in a manual system can be manipulated and changed easily, leading to data corruption, which is a lack of audit trail facilities. Anybody can just go in the book room and just, um, let's say, strike out a number on the book card or strike out a code, the book condition from C, put it to B, stuff like that, change around data on the card. If a pencil was used, especially, anybody can just go and erase something off the card. So that in itself would be a challenge where um, there's not much data protection in it. The system requires monitoring by human effort. Um, they are running compliant with the specified framework. So sometimes persons would have to come in and to inspect the book room, that the coordinator is doing the correct procedures, issuing book and collecting books and stuff. But the data in this system um, requires human effort, because the book rental person have to go into the cabinet periodically to check that the cards are properly maintained, to keep them locked away at all times from any eventualities like water spilling on them, rain spilling on them. They have to check sometimes to see if there is any possible damages that can take place, and as such, I'll be very careful with it. Now, the the system, there's great concern must place on backup procedures and the protective mechanism that the system has in place. Records become lost or damaged. So imagine if all the cards in the bottom drawer got soaked because of a flooding in the book room, and the water rose about let's say knee height off the ground, maybe about three, well, about 2 feet, that probably about a little bit over 2 feet, or just close to knee level. Then if the water flood the book room, it means that all the cards that are in the book room are going to become wet up in the lower drawers. That now becomes an issue. Or when do you have to go and copy or back up all the cards in the book room? Would it make sense having two duplicate cards for persons, keeping one copy in the office and one copy in the book room? How do you track this kind of data when the changes are being made? That's an issue. The backup procedures for the manual systems are very lame. The protective mechanism to protect physical paper requires a lot more effort, because paper has to be stored at the right room temperature, in the right condition of a case, storage cabinet, to ensure that the paper does not deteriorate. Any kind of molding, wetness of the situation, change in humidity can affect the viability or the sustained use of the paper. Manual systems are most time paper based, and because of this, there is a need for large physical storage space in the facility, and that is also a disadvantage of the manual information system. In the automated system, we come out with several benefits of automated information system. The most important benefit of automated information processing system is that there is a fast response time in data processing. Large amount of data can be processed in a relatively short space of time, and that in itself is very beneficial to us. Um, Other benefits of automated information processing is the security features that are in place, especially with software being used with data management. You can back up data very easily. You can put password on the data to protect against tampering. Um, when you look at automated information processing also as an advantage that the techniques used in automated information processing increases the productivity that takes place in an organization. But the problems with automated information system is that with automated information system, they are very expensive to set up, high cost of setting up, the need for specialized equipment and hardware to operate the system, the need to put facilities in place to to kind of ensure that the system is going to work for you. A lot of times, automated systems are very expensive, very labor, very, it requires a lot of planning to implement. A lot of effort must be put in. There's need for high training. So imagine that you're using a computer system to the book room. You have to train the book room staff to use it, and what happens if that person's not there one day? Who else can use the system? You have to train people to use the system. A lot of money is spent on training in an automated information system. A next disadvantage or limitation of the automated information system is in terms of record, is in terms of system failure. If there's no electrical power and the system fails, the system goes down, then as a result of this, you will become, how you put it, you become in a standstill because not many persons understand how to go back to the manual ways that they use to process data. So if, for example, paymasters go down, then that's easy to go and go back to a manual receipt. But people have to know, do a lot of recording of data, the handwriting might vary, the transportation of data, figures turn around, instead of saying 654, it might say 645, spelling of words are different in recording receipts and all of that. And then that creates a problem when we record data incorrectly using manual methods, we have to revert to them. If you imagine if the US Embassy system goes down, or the passport immigration office, the system goes down, then there cannot be any data processing that takes place until the systems come back up. And those are some of the benefits and limitations of both manual and automated information processing. Question 4 required you to look at the components or the steps in each type of information processing. In automated information processing, the steps that you go through includes, in automated, there is input, otherwise called data entry or data capture. There is processing, um, for example, analyze, sort, or calculate data. There is storage, retrieval, output, which can form the presentation or the dissemination of information. In the manual information processing, we talk about the collection of data, the collation of data, the analysis, presentation, and dissemination of information, of data. Now, a table should be drawn up, and this table should record one activity that takes place in each of these steps. So, for example, if we're looking at manual information processing, then if we go around and count all the chairs in the different classrooms, that is data collection. How many teachers' chairs are there, how many metal chairs, how many folding chairs, how many join on decks and chair together, how many desks are there, metal chairs, that kind of stuff. That is manual data collection. Data collation now is if we are to group the data. So in grade 7, of all the 5 classes, how many metal chairs did we find? How many wooden chairs did we find? How many desks did we find? How many teachers' chair or desks did we find? So you group data by type. in terms of data analysis, if we now count it up and use a table to record the different types of chairs by classroom that is stored, then that could be a form of data analysis. A table could be used to present its information so that 7M have 14 chairs, 28 desks, 10 desks and chairs, 2 teachers' chair, 1 teacher's desk, and your table and summarize that. It is the same thing for each grade, each class in the grade, and then you tabulate it afterwards. That would be a very good example of data and presentation. And then now there's dissemination. So if you post the results of this class by class summary on the wall of each room, and then you give copies to the grade coordinator, to the vice principal, to the bursar, to the form teacher, then that is disseminating of information now. The um, components of automated information processing being expressed in a sentence. Data input or data capture or data entry. If all the chairs, the desks, all the items of equipment or furniture in the classroom had a barcode on them, and we use a barcode scanner to scan them one by one, then that is a form of data input, otherwise called data capture, data entry. When the system processes that data, they could analyze and put together how many chairs, how many desks and chairs were there, how many teachers' chairs were there, and stuff like that. In terms of they could sort that also, like which class had in the most metal chairs or most chairs in the form, that kind of stuff they could sort. They could calculate, add numbers together to find out, if they add 6 metal chairs from this class plus 10 metal chairs in that class, then they could do some kind of data analysis, probably to move all the metal chairs into one classroom, all the wooden chairs in another classroom, stuff like that. There's storage of data, to be able to keep data on a thumb drive or some kind of electronic device that is storage. Then we could retrieve the data from the system, maybe a query to see which classroom have the most chairs or which classroom have the least chairs. We could go into each classroom, retrieve the data, look at what number of chairs are there for each classroom. Then we have data output. In that one, we try to present and disseminate information, present it, put in a form which makes it readable or understandable, and then dissemination means to pass out information to someone else or to its intended audience. And those are, looking at the different activity that could take place in each of these steps. Now, if you had to draw the diagram of data going into information, then that diagram can be drawn very easily based on the knowledge you took from CXC. So if you have to draw the diagram showing how data, the interrelationship between data and information, you must have data input, then it is process, then output, then storage. On this side where you have input and you have processing, we're talking about data. Data is talking about on this side of the diagram, while on this side of the diagram we're talking about information. Now remember, when you draw a diagram for A-level purposes or in any exam, matter of fact, then a label at the bottom of the diagram is very important. So down here, diagram showing the interrelationship between data and information, that will be very helpful on the diagram that you draw. In terms of the question for information is important asset for effective and efficient operation of an organization. But each of the following types of information identify the likely users and the purpose of which information is used. We start off with the operational level. Remember, we discussed that operational level speaks to the lowest level of the organization in which we look at information being used. The level of the operational level look at the day-to-day collection of information, the day-to-day processing, the very minor details of information processing in a sense. Um, so recording how many books you give out each time. Yeah, mark and register at the class level. That is, day-to-day data. That's more operational type of data. In terms of the users of that, then probably could be classroom teachers or entry level workers, line staff in organizations, stuff like that. In terms of the tactical level of information and organization, we're talking mostly now about the middle management staff, supervisors in this case. So in terms of like the grade coordinators who must calculate how many boys, how many girls are in each home class, or collect the numbers every day, then that is now at the mid management level. They are now looking at strategies in which they have to record data or the whole technical, not technical, um, the tactical level look at if there's a problem in terms of collecting numbers, then how do we go around that? What strategies can we implement to go around that? In terms of strategic level of management, this is at the top level of the organization, normally executive level of the organization. Um, the principal will need to calculate how many students are present at school in a particular day in order to make decisions. Then that's more at a very strategic level. The principal don't know need to know which students are absent from school. So now we're talking about um, organizational policies that are normally probably set, mandating information being manipulated at a very high level in organization. Then that is very at a strategic level. In terms of the reference to an automated teller machine system of a commercial bank, state one example of each type of information described. So at the ATM, the every transaction that is done at the ATM, that is at the operational level. So the customers who make that daily minute by minute transaction withdrawal or deposit, then that is now at the operational level. If they look at the patterns of withdrawal, the frequency of withdrawing a certain amount, then that is now at the the tactical level. When you go into an ATM, you see 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. They give you fixed amount sometime on the screen because most persons are going to draw that kind of money based on historical pattern. You can still put in how much money you want to draw, which is okay. Um, then they will know how quickly to replenish the funds in the machine. At the strategic level, in terms of information here, it talking now about maybe deciding where to put ATMs. What backup features I have in place in these ATMs in terms of them being stolen or tampered with, um, people um, people getting robbed at ATM. What are the steps we will take to protect that ATM to ensure that there is um, you know no stealing of the ATM? Strategically, you wouldn't want that, but at the same time, you would want an ATM in an era where the ATMs are prone to be robbed, by persons and as such, the cost to repair them, the cost to replace these ATMs would be very, very expensive. Using examples of the weather or garbage collection, such as how the use of information is critical in decision making. Include in your discussion the data quality and appropriateness of data, and explain how the presence of these is critical to decision. I'm going to break down this question in a little bit of a different parts. Let's look at the garbage collection. Suggest how the use of information is critical in decision making. If, for example, the garbage is to be collected in a community recently after Hurricane Sandy, then it is critical for them to have information about the kind of garbage that they're collecting. Is it more debris? Is it more domestic garbage? Is it trees and tree limbs, big chunks of trees, that kind of stuff? Because the trucks that they normally send for domestic garbage can't cut up the tree limbs them or take them into the truck. They might damage the gears. That turns the domestic garbage, your everyday use garbage, in the truck, and that can compress the garbage in the truck. So they might send a truck that has a shredding component inside of it that will allow you to put the trees them and stuff inside of it, and it shreds them and breaks them up into smaller pieces. It's critical therefore then in decision making. If large stuff are being thrown out, like beds and fridge and those stuff, then the regular trucks can't pick up those stuff. So that is why it is critical to have information. So if the persons in a particular community call in to report that they have stuff to pick up, then they might just go and pay the money, and then the stuff is picked up from your home based on the convenience schedule of the trucks, or they can pick up those kind of stuff. Then now, if we were to look at discussion, the data quality is very important. To say that you have some trees to pick up, yeah, or to say that these trees are just branches, yeah. But suppose these are big branches, the trunk of the trees that were cut up with a saw, an electric saw. Then, if they send a regular truck to come for it, then it might end up damaging the truck sometimes, because those trucks are not designed to carry those kind of garbage. Appropriateness of data. It's very important to know what kind of trees are these trees with prickles on them, because maybe the persons who come to remove them didn't bring gloves to handle them, and as such, because of not having the appropriate data on the kind of trees that you're removing, then they might end up causing injury to themselves. Suppose these trees are trees which are poisonous, or they have to be handled with gloves and stuff like that, then not putting it in place, then it could cause some kind of problem. Explain how the presence of these is critical in decision making. So if you know what kind of trees you're picking up, what kind of branches, then you will come prepared to deal with it, what is happening. In terms of weather, suggest how information is critical in decision making. Now in weather reporting, it is a lot of the data is based on what they get from satellite feeds. So if for example a storm or a tropical depression is picked up in the Caribbean, then weather stations that are monitoring situations on the ocean will right away alert Jamaica's meteorological office to start look into this storm system that is moving in close to the island, and that in itself would generate some kind of timeliness in how quickly we need to respond, and how quickly we need to inform the public of this pending disaster. Now, in terms of information, in terms of data quality, if we don't know what direction the storm is coming from, what speed the storm is coming at, we don't know something about the storm, then if we don't have that kind of data quality, then we can make wrong decisions in terms of our predictions. the appropriateness of the data. The data about the storm should be appropriate. Telling me about a storm system which is off the coast of Africa right now, which doesn't have any impending threat on Jamaica, then that data it will be inappropriate to collect and store with the storm Sandy in the Caribbean coming towards Jamaica. So we have to think about the appropriateness of data. Does this kind of data fit the whole pattern of such? Question 5 require you to look at the different symbols that are given to you, and you have to state the kind of data. Numerical data, the one right here in the center, where you can see the letters, that is text. The one right over to here, characters are being used. We come back over to this side. This is Morse code, musical notes, fingerprints, and down the bottom you have musical symbols. If we are now to give the purpose of image number 5D, image number 5D is Morse codes. And Morse codes are used as a character encoding technique for transmitting telegraphic information. It uses standardized sequence of short and long elements to represent letters, numerals, punctuation marks, characters, and give a message. The short and long elements can be formed by the sound, marks, or pulse in and off keying that are commonly called dots and dashes or dits and da. It is used a lot in radio operators who are communicating with each other by using radio wave beacons and land mobile transmitters. Morse codes are designed to be read by humans without a decoding device, making it very useful for sending automated data digitally across channels. So, for example, in emergency signaling, they can flash lights at different intervals, long and short flashes, to trigger off if there is going to be any problem. In terms of the other symbol, which is the symbol C, those symbols are character symbols, and they're used in a language to encode data or to encode words. Those are Japanese characters that are used to write Japanese scripts. In terms of in number of F, where fingerprinting is being used, fingerprinting can be used, yes, in biometrics security systems, useful by police at crime scene in investigation when they remove the fingerprints for the purpose of evidence of some kind of crime which was committed. Excluding tables, graphs, and charts provide a list of the 5 meaningful ways of representing information. We can do this according to your syllabus, which is objective 7 year syllabus. The ways includes text, graphics, sound, video, special notations such as mathematical symbols, scientific notations, and musical notations. Those are different ways we can represent information. So we can represent it by using text, graphics, sound, video, special purpose notations as mathematics notations, musical notations, and scientific notations. You're asked to tables and graphs and charts are useful to present information with reference to the real life scenario. So just how a particular graph can be used in information presentation. So for example, if you want to compare student who take different mode of transportation to school, bus ride and stuff, then a bar graph might be used best to summarize that comparison of data. If we are, for example, tracking the rainfall pattern for a month over time, then we can use a line graph for that, because line graph will show fluctuation, changes, and movements. And then now, if you want to look at what is the percent of a whole, you want to know of this number of students, how many of them are female or how many are male, then to get the percentage analysis of that, then that would be a way in which bar graph, sorry, pie charts can be used. Such as how effective tables can be used in information processing. Because of its tabular structure, columns and rows are being used. Tables can be used effectively in, let us say we want to compare data against each other. Compare readings of data, maybe readings in salt water versus reading in fresh water. Then that kind of stuff is better to use on a table because of the columnar structure, which limits the amount of writing that you put in and the details you put in a paragraph, for example. The fifth question requires you to provide 10 examples of information sources, which is found in number 8 of your syllabus and objective of Module 1, Unit 1, Objective 8. The types of information sources they can have books, journals, catalogs, magazines, newspapers, online libraries, CD-ROMs, DVDs, electronic databases, websites, people, blogs, wikis. Those are all the different types of information sources we have, and that your syllabus speaks to. Do I definition any 5 of these? Newspaper, for example, would give current affairs, what's happening in the country, regular updates on daily events. If you talk about books, books are normally well printed, well researched material that have been published by a publisher. That is also one type of information sources. Books are updated periodically. Sorry, books are updated periodically, um, which makes them, very useful, but not updated very often like newspaper. Books are not updated like every 3 to 5 years. We update a book. If we talk about an information source such as DVDs are very, very useful. For example, you want to store the movie at the Amistad, you want to use it in a classroom for history classes, then that could store a DVD. CD-ROMs are very useful for storing multimedia application of data. For example, encyclopedias can be stored on multimedia. Content such as learning software can be stored on CD-ROMs. In terms of the people, people can be interviewed to get first-hand account of information that is being presented. If we look at another information source such as a journal, journals are normally developed based on a certain subject content. So if we are to discuss in some detail what journals are, then we will come up with definitions of journals. Looking for it. Now, journals will speak to publication that are normally produced periodically. They are, really periodicals also. But journals are very, very useful as in subject content. Professional publications written in scholarly style aim at informing users about development in a particular subject area. So journals written for scientists or for doctors, those would be examples of journals. And we could talk about websites being used to gather information. If you want to talk about anything about Jamaican government, you can go to www.jis.gov. You want to know about UTech, you could go to www.utech.edu.jm in order to access information from websites. Bloggings are very useful. For example, those will allow you to respond to people's comment. For example, Facebook, you can blog on people's site and you can start a conversation about something that is taking place. A table should be to summarize the advantages and disadvantages of 5 of these, and these are given as homework.